Welcome, tech enthusiasts. Today we're diving into the world of efficient web server management. Get ready to supercharge your web applications and enhance your server infrastructure as we explore the ins and outs of Nginx Proxy Manager. Nginx Proxy Manager allows you to attach domains and subdomains to your self-hosted applications and servers that you already have acquired on various DNS or domain hosting providers. Better yet, combined with AdGuard, we can create domain names that can only be accessed on your local network, which is perfect if you don't want the world accessing your self-hosted content. Alternatively, it makes it easier for you to deploy subdomains and domains to various areas of your server for the world to see if that's what you want instead. And the icing on the cake is that it also allows you to easily implement SSL for those domains and subdomains, encrypting and protecting that website's traffic. Nginx Proxy Manager also allows us to very easily implement, by the click of a button, some great defenses against the most common vulnerabilities in web servers. And what all this means is that you can easily deploy a web server on your server with just a few clicks. The first step in this process is going to be to use an existing domain name. If you don't have one, there are various providers out there. They will provide you one for free, such as DuckDNS. I am a member of DYNU, and as a member I get up to 500 free subdomains, in addition to my own domain name that I host with them. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to create a domain name to use here, which I'll delete after creating this video, but will assist me in demonstrating the use of Nginx Proxy Manager for you. So we will create KLTech videos. The cool thing is, obviously, we can use any of these I like. As a member of DYNU, I also get to pick some of these ones which are member-only ones. That looks funky. So we'll go with kltechvideos.bubbleshrimp.com. And we'll add this. We're now on the page that will assist us in pointing that domain name at my server. Obviously, I will obscure the IP address because that will be my home IP address. If you don't have a static IP address, like most internet service providers, they won't provide you that. They'll provide you what's called a dynamic IP address, which changes from time to time. You're going to want to use the IP update program provided by DYNU. You're going to want to use the IP update client. Now, as we run our self-hosted applications on Windows, as you know, on Docker, and a few not on Docker, but primarily on Windows, you'll need to download the Windows client if that's what you're using. Or if you're not, you'll find other settings below. So once you've downloaded that and have that up and running, it will basically, once you've logged in, constantly update DYNU or domain that you've created with that IP address, constantly pointing it towards your server. Now, the other thing that you'll need to do if you are exposing your server to the world, and bearing in mind we don't recommend doing that unless you have relevant protections and relevant experience in place, but just for the purposes of education, we're going to show you both how to expose to the world and a method where you don't need to do that. If you did want to do that, you'd need to go into your router and port forward port 443, because we will be using SSL, and 443 is the standard HTTPS port. So with your domain created and the IP update protocol installed, everything should be working on that side. Just don't forget to forward the port if you are going to be using that method. If you don't wish to forward the port, you can skip to the next step in our video, which is got chapters in the description, and you can just go straight to internal access only. So as you'll see, this is the Nginx Proxy Manager GitHub repository. And Nginx Proxy Manager was created by JC over here. I would recommend everyone go and buy me a coffee to Jamie. Donate to him, donate to the project if you're using it. It's something well deserved. On the Nginx Proxy Manager GitHub page, you will scroll down and you will see a very basic compose script. This will get you up and running in a few seconds. We've actually modified ours a little bit differently to this, and you can feel free to use either one, this or the one in the link in the description below. The latest version at the time of recording this video was August 2nd, 2023, posted at 2.10.4, and we're going to be implementing that version. If we go over to our compose file, you will see it kind of looks the same, but we've modified a few things. If you're a regular viewer of this channel, you will know that we like to implement deploy and resource controls, including networks, in our compose files, because we run everything obviously on Windows, on Docker as well. But in the past, we've come across a few things like IP conflicts and memory leaks and all sorts of things like that. Not saying that Nginx Proxy Manager has any of those. That said, if we get into a standard of putting these restrictions in place, it gives us less problems. So we've created an IP address and a network for Nginx Proxy Manager. This will just be a copy and paste job for you on your Windows Docker desktop system. So yeah, feel free to just copy and paste it as is. The IP address we've set it is 172.22.04. We've put resource limits of 4 CPU cores in and 1 gig of RAM. We've removed port 80 because we're not going to be using it for anything less than HTTPS SSL encrypted. We've got some pretty standard environment variables here. We're using the MySQL MariaDB, just so you're aware. So we've created a MySQL password. You can modify these. In fact, I highly recommend that you modify these. Leave the port the same, leave the host the same. Just change the password and the username if you want to. If you do that, you're going to need to replicate that down below and obviously have a different root password. We've also created volumes. Now, usually on our projects, we do use bind mounts in Windows, and we map that to a folder on our Windows host, usually in our documents folder. However, in the years that I've been using Nginx Proxy Manager, I've found it much more efficient to use volumes. And definitely back those up. And if you don't know how to do that, you can easily do a quick Google search on that, but regularly back those volumes up. But yeah, I do find it to be a lot better to use volumes, which we implement here. For the database, again, we've implemented network controls. We've bumped the IP from 4 to 3. We've got resource restrictions in place still. And we've got the environment variables here, including a Docker volume, again, for the DB. This is the network that we've created and its subnet. And then these are the volumes that we're using in this compose file. As long as you're happy with that and you want to just go ahead with that, feel free. We're going to copy this. As you're well aware, we do use Dockge to deploy our compose files. I do have a video on that, which will also be in the description if you'd like to use Dockge. We also use Homer as our server dashboard. So we're going to go to Dockge here. And Dockge is really cool. I don't know if you've heard of it before. It's another self-hosted application that you can run on Windows on Docker. And basically it gives a cool place for all your compose files and containers to show and run. And that's really cool. It makes it very easy. Very similar to Portainer. But go and watch that Dockge video and I'll give you a really good in-depth guide on how to deploy this and what it's like. Okay, so we'll hit compose. We will select all from this and paste. And then that gets us in there. The stack name we're going to have is npm, Nginx Proxy Manager. And then we're going to deploy. Okay. Let's give it a few seconds for it to start. And then that looks good. As soon as you get that renew complete, that generally indicates things are good to go. Now from Dockge, we can just smash the port number button here, which is, 81, which is up here. That's the administration interface. And as you'll see, we're at 2.10.4. Now the default email and password is on the GitHub repository page, and that is admin@example.com, and the password is change me, which you should definitely change. It'll pop up to do that in the display. So the email address will give this, which I will obscure again because that is my own email address here. Again, make sure you create something very robust here. And there we go. This is the dashboard to Nginx Proxy Manager. And if you've never been here before, I know this can look a little bit daunting, but I'm going to take you through it. Okay, while we're here, let's add Nginx Proxy Manager to our Homer dashboard. And I have a video linked in the description below. Check that out on how to install Homer, which is a great server dashboard. I'm going to add an app. Nginx Proxy Manager. There we go. So we got a nice picture. And at the moment that's running on HTTP. And we'll save that. There we go. We can now get to each of those. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is something really cool that Nginx Proxy Manager makes very easy. And that's implement SSL, Secure Socket Layer. It's the little padlock you've seen on websites in the top left corner. It's the thing that tells you this website is encrypting its traffic and that no man-in-the-middle attacks can occur. No one can snoop on the details that you are putting into the website. And we should definitely enable that for our domain name. So the way to do that is we're going to first go to SSL certificates, add an SSL certificate, and we're going to want to use what's called a wildcard, which basically means in front of our website address, we're going to want to put an asterisk, followed by a dot, followed by our domain name that we set up earlier on. So kltechvideos.bumble.com. So now what we want to do is use a DNS challenge. We're going to select our provider, which is DYNU. You'd select whatever you're using. And we now need our authorization token, which is basically our API key. To get this, we go back to our DYNU service. We can see API credentials down here. You'd have to find it in whatever you're using. We're going to generate a new one just for this domain, just for this project, which is this. I'm going to take that and we're going to pop it in here. Bearing in mind there is a little space right between equals and the token. We're going to agree to those terms and conditions. And we're going to click save. What this is now doing is it's putting a txt file onto the domain DNS records to confirm that the domain belongs to me, and that's what yours will do for you. Once it verifies that is the case, it'll go ahead and create an SSL certificate. Now the cool thing about this process is, to this point, you don't need to port forward anything. This does everything in the background with the website using that API. So if you don't want to port forward, that's absolutely fine. You can still do this part. And there you go. You'll find that we now have an SSL certificate for our domain name. Wildcard with our asterisk, which means we can have any subdomain we want as well. .kltechvideos.bumbleshrimp.com. And it expires on the 1st of April. So we've got a couple of months worth of that as well. And then this, by the way, will automatically renew it every time. As long as that API key remains valid and you don't delete it, it will just update itself, which is great. Okay, now we've created the SSL certificate, we're going to go to our dashboard. We're going to click on proxy hosts. And this is where we're going to create our subdomain, which is going to direct traffic from the internet through our domain we created earlier on to Homebox. And Homebox is a nifty, cool little self-hosted application that allows you to track, organize, and manage your things. I use it personally for putting things in virtual rooms inside Homebox, so I don't forget them in real life. For example, my passports, they're in the garage in the red box, for example. That's all built into Homebox. You don't have to expose this to the internet. I don't, but like I said earlier on, I'm going to show you both methods, and we'll do that now. Okay, so let's create our subdomain. We'll go with homebox.kltechvideos.bumbleshrimp.com. Okay, so as you're aware, we created that domain name earlier on today. We're going to add homebox dot as the subdomain, and we're allowed to do that because when we created our SSL, we put that asterisk in, which allowed for a wildcard, which means any subdomain is covered under that. We're going to put our IP address in here. And if you don't know how to do this, by the way, you can literally just do ipconfig in the command prompt. Scroll up slightly and you'll find your IP address. That's your system IP address that we're running Docker on. I'm going to pop that in here. Homebox runs on port 3100, as you can see there, 3100. So 3100. Another cool trick that I mentioned earlier on, and is why I recommend Nginx Proxy Manager amongst other reverse proxies, is that with a click of a button, you could block the most common exploits on web servers. And that is a really powerful tool to just be able to click that button without you having to dive into any configuration whatsoever. Can help protect your website and your web server. Now, it is worth pointing out that the other half of this is a good firewall. Well, I use Firewaller Gold SE, which has intrusion detection and prevention. It has a lot of features on it that helps protect basically the front door of my server house. It helps filter out a lot of the bad actors there, which works in conjunction with blocking these exploits at the server level. I also rely on Homebox to make sure they're implementing good security practices, and you can find things out like that through GitHub, looking at issues, looking at using relevant scanners. You can use there's a new Dockge tool now that helps you look at vulnerabilities inside containers, and you should never just take anyone's word for it. You should look for yourself. But all those things help protect me, and the ultimate protection, especially when using Homebox for myself, is the fact that I don't have this online. You can't type a website address in to get to my Homebox other than the one during this demonstration. So with that said, let's put WebSockets on as well, because a lot of websites, web servers, and containers require WebSockets as well. And finally, we'll go to our SSL certificate that we created earlier on. We're going to force these options here because these also enable good protections. And lastly, we're going to click Save. Now, as long as you have your port forwarding, assuming you're using this online, you have Windows Firewall configured to allow the traffic to come through on 443, which it should enable. If this doesn't work, we can also do that as well. So we've put our subdomain in here. We've got our destination on the server. It's covered by SSL, and it's online. So if we click this now, this should allow us through. And as you can see, we've got our subdomain at the top here with our website, homebox.kltechvideos.bumbleshrimp.com. And if we look to the left of it, we've got our little padlock, view site information. Connection is secure. This site has a valid certificate issued by a trusted authority. This means information such as passwords or credit cards will be securely sent to this site and cannot be intercepted. And it's as simple as that. That's, in a nutshell, how to expose your services to the World Wide Web through Nginx Proxy Manager. And you can create many, many more if you'd like. you can have this attached to all of your self-hosted projects and containers. But now we come to the part of the video which shows you how to use this in an offline environment where you can only actually use this inside your local network. Now, that doesn't mean you have to only be in the house to use it. If you have a VPN connection, you can use this across the VPN. We will cover VPN usage in a later video to show you how you can use your offline and local only hosted websites when you're even out of the house. During this video, we'll show you how to do that only inside your house, not using any VPNs, unless you know what you're doing already. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing is we're going to turn off port forwarding. Now we've done this and you're happy with this, we're going to turn off port forwarding. That will now block connections into the server. So let me go and do that now. Yeah, you can see it's not going to let us log in. The connection to the server has been cut. This is with port forwarding turned off. So you say, Keith, well, how can I use this just in an offline environment? Well, I'll show you. As you may or may not be aware, in a previous video we installed AdGuard, and I'll leave a link in the description below to show you how to do that. But if you already have AdGuard installed, then you're already one step ahead. Let's add our AdGuard to our home server dashboard. You don't have to follow these steps, by the way. This is just for me. HTTP localhost, and we put that on port 82, I believe, when we set it up last. Yes, here we go. Okay. Now in AdGuard, the area we need to go to get this working locally is in filters, and it's in DNS rewrites. And basically this is where we can kind of play our own domain name provider, if you will. We can add the DNS rewrite information here. Now all we need to do in here is put the website address in from here. So if we copy this website address and we put it in here. In fact, we can actually use a wildcard here as well. If we take our phone box and we just put the asterisk again, that allows any subdomains on our domain name here to come through. And the IP address again is the one we use for our server. Copy. And we click save. And what this does is it now tells our computer, our servers, everything connected to AdGuard, that any time we go to a subdomain or domain of this website, redirect it back to this server where we have Nginx Proxy Manager installed on. Okay, now if we go back to Nginx Proxy Manager and we click our link, as you can see, this is now routing us back through. As you saw earlier, when we turned port forwarding off, it just hovered around logging in. The server connection terminated. But we're back and we still have our SSL connection. That's still implemented on here. But this no longer goes through the internet. Because AdGuard is rewriting that connection back into the local network, it means that the data never leaves our network. And it's really as simple as that. And because we've done this now, any domains, subdomains we create in Nginx Proxy Manager for any other self-hosted applications, anything we want to point it at, if we're using this and it's on our local network, because of AdGuard allowing us to do this DNS rewrite and we're pointing our devices at AdGuard, again, I'll leave that link in the description below, check out that video, it means we can now use this offline. Now, if you had a VPN hooked up to your server as well, like WireGuard or something like I do, you'd be able to access this no matter where you were in the world. You'd be able to access this whether you're camping, whether you're, assuming you've got an internet connection. But anyway, you have that internet connection, as long as you have your VPN turned on, you'll be able to get back into your network using that domain. And we will cover that in a later video because that is some really cool tech. But on the face of it, that's it. That's the version of offline. You'll still follow every step up to this point, bar port forwarding, if you want to have offline access only, which is what I would encourage. And pretty much that's Nginx Proxy Manager. There's a few other features that you can run on here. You can have redirection hosts, which means you can redirect one website to another. Streams, you can create your own custom 404 hosts. And that's all great stuff. Now, if we go back into Dockge really quickly and we're on an npm Nginx Proxy Manager, you'll notice in our compose file we did have 2.10.4 instead of latest, and I would highly recommend you keep that there until such a time as Nginx Proxy Manager gets another update. Now, they are working on version 3 as it stands, but occasionally you'll get a bump. You can check out the Nginx Proxy Manager GitHub repository, and then you can come in here and manually change that, or import it, or whatever you use for your compose files. But thanks for watching the video. I hope it's given you some extra skills that you didn't have originally. Please feel free to leave a comment. This is going to be my 4th YouTube video on this channel. I'm learning as much as you guys. So thanks for watching.